Welcome to the Week 3 NFL Sports Betting Picks video here at FTN Bets, known as Betting with Benny, available on the Game Plus network. What we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at the opening lines from FanDuel and DraftKings. We're going to compare them to our power ratings over at FTN Bets and see if we can find some value. So let's throw up that first game here between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns, taking place on Thursday night. So when I break down this game, I get the Cleveland Browns are about 1 point better on a neutral field. You factor in home field advantage. I get a number of the Cleveland Browns -3 here, which is the exact number that they have on FanDuel, although it is juiced up a little bit at -120. DraftKings has the game at -3.5 here. Like I said, my number's 3.5 is the number that's out there in the market. I don't really see a lot of value to be had really in this game. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. You can tell the total is already down in the 40s. We've had some very low totals in NFL games for this year. I do not remember this many totals being in the low 40s, some of them even cracking below to like 38, 39. So, again, looking at the numbers here, I'm pretty much on market. So I don't think we really have a lot of value here on the Thursday night game. Not really the greatest Thursday night game. We're coming off of seeing Chiefs and Chargers last week, which was a really good game. Now we kind of get Browns and Steelers. It is what it is. Sometimes we get good ones. Sometimes we don't. Thursday night, probably not going to be a great day for NFL football. But we do have a lot of good games to talk about here on Sunday at 1 o'clock. So let's go on and talk about the first one that we have here on the Sunday slate. And that is going to be the aforementioned Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Kansas City is 2-0 on the season. They're coming off that win on Thursday Night Football over the Los Angeles Chargers, 27-24. Indianapolis in a tailspin at the moment, 0-1-1, having lost games so far this season. Well, not really lost games so far this season, but they had the tie with Houston, and then they had a really bad loss to Jacksonville. They lost 24-0 down in Jacksonville, a place that they, for some reason, have not won in, I think, 8 years at this point right now, which is just a crazy stat to me, given that the Colts are usually a pretty solid team, and Jacksonville has not been over the last couple of years here. But, I mean, they put an absolute hurting on the Colts. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is we're going to need to watch the news to get a little bit of information here, because Michael Pittman and their number 2 wide receiver, Alex Pierce, didn't play in that last game here. If those two guys are not going to play again and they're down to, Ashton Doolin and Paris Campbell and whoever else they happen to promote off of the practice squad here, this number could be even a little bit worse than it is here at the moment. I had Kansas City about 8 points better on a neutral field, so -6, -5.75, I think is what my number came out as. So again, a little bit below what they have here at the -6 and the -6.5. But honestly, we're pretty much on market in this one as well. You can see the total in this game, 49.5, much higher total. Chiefs being involved, it makes a lot of sense here. I don't know if the Colts are going to be able to keep up. Like I said, if Pittman and Pierce aren't playing here, I would actually think you can take the Chiefs if you're getting them under a touchdown. If those guys are playing, I think this number is pretty much on from what I have in my power ratings. Although I will say that my power ratings are factored with guys like Pittman and Pierce both being in the lineup. Pierce doesn't make much of a difference. Pittman is about 1 point or so. So that's why I said if Pittman doesn't play here, taking the 6.5 I don't think is a bad number. So let's go on and talk about the next game here. So the next game we have is the Baltimore Ravens taking on the New England Patriots. This one is interesting. Both teams played much better in week 2 than they did in week 1. Baltimore, though, was on the losing end in that game. They are 1-1. They beat the Jets in the first game. They lost to Miami in the second game, 42-38, in a game that they were in control of pretty much throughout the entire first half and the beginning of the second half. And then Miami just exploded with a bunch of long touchdowns. I guess that's what happens when you have guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on your team. You can come back from any deficit, and that is exactly what they did. Baltimore can't be feeling good about blowing that big lead. The New England Patriots had a really nice win this weekend, 17-14 over the Pittsburgh Steelers. They moved to 1-1 as well. I have Baltimore about 3 points better on a neutral field, but when you factor in home field advantage, probably more like 1.5 points is where I thought this should be. So I do think we have a little bit of value here on New England +3. Now, is it a great number? Is it something that I'm going to be rushing out and putting a massive amount of money on? No, but the fact that we are getting the full field goal here with New England is something I like. I'm debating whether to put a bet down now or waiting till later in the week, because I do think there's a chance that we get this up to, Ravens -3.5, which would give us 3 in the hook on the Patriots. If we could get the hook on the Patriots, I'd probably be more likely to take it. But I do think there's a little bit of value on Patriots +3 here if you want to take it right now. Like I said, I'm going to wait a little bit. Hopefully it moves in my favor and not away from me, but I do think there's a little bit of value here. So let's talk about the next game here. And the next game we have up, Houston Texans against the Chicago Bears. So the Texans are 0-1-1. They lost to Denver 16-9, and they tied Indianapolis. Honestly, that's not a bad start here for the Texans. That's probably better than most people thought they were going to do. Chicago is currently getting their butts kicked by Green Bay on Sunday Night Football while we're doing this video here. They do not look very good. They did not look all that great last week against San Francisco, but they did manage to come away with one win. So, 1-1 is very likely the way things are going to turn out here for the Chicago Bears after this Green Bay game is over, which currently we got about a half a football left here to play. When I break down my number on this game, I get Chicago Bears should be favored by about 2.5 points. So 3 is a little bit high here. Yes, it's a key number. It is a little bit interesting, but honestly, we're kind of on market here. I know this is a boring start to the show here, guys, but you know what? Sometimes the numbers are what the numbers are. I don't really think there's a lot of value here. So let's talk about the next game we got up. Next game up is the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Tennessee Titans. Let's see. The Raiders are 0-2, having lost to Arizona 29-23 in a game that they controlled pretty much throughout. Arizona with a big third and fourth quarter wound up coming back and tying it up and then getting the win in overtime. I think on a defensive touchdown, if I'm not mistaken, was how that game ended. Tennessee plays on Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills. They are 0-1 currently at the moment, very likely to be 0-2, but then again, we got to wait and see how that game turns out. I'm assuming that all the guys are going to get through that game healthy enough and everybody's going to be able to play and be ready to go when these two teams do meet. I have Tennessee should be favored by about 1 point here, which is interesting because that's what FanDuel has. DraftKings has the Raiders favored by 1 point here. But when we're down here by this 1 point, the number's right around the 0. Honestly, it's not that big a deal one way or another which team winds up being favored. Because, again, anything under the number 3 is basically just, a little bit of a number that's down there. So when you look at this game, for me, really what you want to do is kind of play the money line here. Like I said, I think the Tennessee Titans deserve to be favored in this game. So I can get them at even money on the money line over on DraftKings. I think they should be a slight favorite. So to me, that's where the value is. Is there a lot of value there? No, not at all. But one other thing I do think I might be considering here, depending on how that Monday night game comes out, is taking the Titans and teasing them up to 7. If we could get it to 1.5 and we could tease it up to 7.5, I'd feel a lot better about it. But again, I think this number is going to be just like it is here. It could flip from one team being favored to the other team being favored. I just want everybody to know if it goes from -1 to +1, yes, that's a 2-point move, but in the overall scheme of things, it's not really that big of a move. So don't make too much of it if that's the way it works out this week. And on to the next game here, Quan. The next game, the Buffalo Bills taking on the Miami Dolphins. This is a game that I'm really looking forward to, especially as a Jets fan, because I want to see who's going to wind up winning the AFC East, because I know it's not going to be my New York Jets. Buffalo is 1-0. They play on Monday Night Football against the Titans. Again, big favorite. They should probably go to 2-0, but we'll have to see how that game works out. These numbers are assuming that everybody gets through that game healthy and is going to be able to play. Again, other than Josh Allen really going down, I don't know how many of these other guys I would make a massive adjustment for. Maybe a point here or a point there, depending if somebody gets hurt. But you know what? We'll cross that bridge when we have to. And again, for any of you guys watching the video, you can always get over to FTN Bets. Use promo code Benny to sign up. Hang out in the Discord. Anytime there's any updates throughout the week, the Discord is the place to go where you get all of the up-to-date information, not just on NFL, but all the other sports that we do as well, and from all the other experts that we have working over at the FTN Bet staff. So again, Buffalo, I have Buffalo as the number 1 team in my power rankings. I have them more than a touchdown better than a league average team. I have Miami slightly ahead of a league average team here. So on a neutral field, I would probably say that this deserves to be about a 6 or 6.5 point spread. When you factor in home field advantage for the Dolphins, you get it down to about 4.5 right there. So I agree with the number here. I don't think there's a lot of value. Again, I think this is a game that's going to have a lot of scoring in it. I actually like the over on the 51.5 would probably be the way that I would be looking to play this game. Miami put up a ton of points, especially in the second half when they were behind and coming back. So if they fall behind and they go to the air with the wide receivers that they have, I think this is a team that can put up a lot of points here. So I do like the over in this matchup. As for the spread, though, and the money line, not really a lot that we could talk about here. I don't think there's any value on that one. So let's go on to the next game here. Next game, the Detroit Lions against the Minnesota Vikings. Let's see. Detroit is 1-1, having just come off a win against the Washington, I almost said the Redskins, the Washington Commanders, 36-27 in their last game. Minnesota plays on Monday Night Football against Philadelphia in a highly anticipated game. So again, assuming everybody comes through good on that one, we'll see how that all works out at the end. I don't think the spread should be as big as it is right here. I have the Minnesota Vikings should be favored by about 5.5 points. So on DraftKings, especially where you're not only getting the 7, but you're getting the 7 and the hook at plus 7.5, I think there's good value on the Lions here at plus 7.5. Remember, we talked about this all last year. We've already talked about it to begin this year. They're 2-0 so far this year against the spread as well. This Detroit Lions team is one of those teams that just always seems to outperform the Vegas expectations for them. You know, even the Philadelphia Eagles game was a great example of it. They go down by a couple scores, and then they just roar back at the end of the game. You know, Lions roar back. I hope everybody picked up on that. But they always roar back at the end of the games, and you know, they are like the kings of the backdoor cover here. They didn't have a lot of wins in the last couple of years, but they have been covering a lot of spreads here. So I do think the Lions are a team that can cover a 7.5 point spread. I think the Vikings are very good. I think the Vikings have a chance to win the NFC North this year, especially with the way they started off against Green Bay. We'll see how they do against Philly tomorrow. Like I said, assuming everybody comes out of this healthy, I just think it's too many points at 7.5 for the Lions. Let's go on to the next one here. The next one, my New York Jets at home taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who seem to be in a tailspin themselves so far. The Bengals obviously have not looked good to start the season here. The Jets did not look good for the entire first game and about 58 minutes of the second game, roaring back with a furious comeback, scoring a touchdown, getting a 2-point conversion, picking up the onside kick, and then scoring another touchdown and kicking the extra point to wind up beating a Cleveland Browns team that they had absolutely no business beating the other day, 31-30. So shout out to my Jets for that. And sorry for everybody who trailed my Browns teaser that we teased down to minus 0.5. I honestly already was getting ready to mark that down as a win with 2 minutes left in the game before the Jets came and scored a couple touchdowns. So a little bit torn there between my favorite team and my pocketbook because I lost a little bit of money on that game. But you know what? That'll happen here. Honestly, I really want to say that there's something we can do with this game, but the Bengals should be favored by about 5 points is the way I get it. I have the Bengals about a touchdown better on a neutral field. Factor in home field advantage for the Jets, get it down to about 5. You know, the 4.5 might even be a little bit light, but again, it's one of those numbers that's in no man's land. You know, 3s we like, 6, 7s, and 8s we'll be interested in. Numbers that we get in like the 4 and 5 range, not really anything that we see. So if it's a point and that point is somewhere in that range, to me, it's basically like, we're right on market here. So nothing we can really do with this game. Let's talk about the next one here, Quan. Next one up is the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Washington Commanders. Philadelphia, like I said, they are a team that we're still waiting on their next game here. They play Monday Night Football against Minnesota. They beat Detroit in the opening game. They were up big. Detroit came back, so they did not cover. They're 0-1 against the spread, and we'll see how they do in that Minnesota game. As for Washington, they lost to that Detroit team that Philly just beat the week before. 36-27 was the score in that game there. The passing game's been working pretty well for Washington. That's why they're 1-1 so far here on the season. Carson Wentz actually looks pretty good. Carson Wentz revenge game here going up against his old team. I have Philly slightly better on a neutral field. When you factor in home field advantage, though, I think this game should be somewhere around the pick'em. So Washington +3 is a little bit of value there at +100. Washington +4 is the way I really want to do it, though, because now if the game comes down to a field goal, which is the number that comes out the most in NFL games here, you would actually get a win with the Commanders at +4. So Commanders +4 is the way that I'm looking to play this game here. I have a lot of respect for the Eagles. I think the Eagles are really good. Maybe watching them on Monday Night Football, if they beat up on the Vikings, it might change my mind. But as of now, if I had to put a bet in on this game, Commanders +4 would be the way to go. So let's talk about the next one here. So the next one and the last one for the 1 o'clock window is going to be the New Orleans Saints taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Saints are 1-1. They won their first game, and then they lost to Tampa Bay 20-10. No shame in losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of the better teams in the league, one of the teams that is the lowest odds to win, actually the team that is the lowest odds to win the NFC this year. Carolina is 0-2. They're coming off a loss to the New York Giants, 19-16. Did not really look all that great in that game when they came out there. When I break this game down, let's see, on a neutral field, I have the New Orleans Saints about 8 points better than the Carolina Panthers. Factor in home field advantage here. I'm getting, let's see, New Orleans should be favored by -6. I do not understand why this is only -3. To me, that number is way too low, assuming that Jameis is still the quarterback. And honestly, even if he's not, and it happens to be Taysom Hill, I still don't understand why this is so low here. The defense did look okay for Carolina, but I also think they looked okay against a Giants team that is not the same caliber as this New Orleans Saints team. So for me, I think the value here is on the Saints. I have no problem with Saints -3. I actually really like Saints -3 because my number is -6 here. So even if they wind up only winning by a field goal, we get the protection of a push on that. I think this number is going to go up as the week goes on. Probably 4.5 is where it's going to settle at. So if you can get it at -3 now, I think you're getting the best of the number. I don't think we're going to see a 2.5 handle on this at any point during the week. So take it right now at the -3. And like I said, we probably got about 3 points of value. So it is one of my better plays for the day. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break here, quick commercial break, and be right back with more Betting with Benny. And welcome back to the NFL Week 3 Sports Betting Picks video here at ftnbets.com, otherwise known as Betting with Benny, and available on the Game Plus network. We went through the Thursday night game. We went through all the 1 o'clock games. Now it's time for us to take a look at the 4 o'clock games. So, Quan, throw that first graphic up there for me. Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 1-1, coming off a win against the Indianapolis Colts. Not even a win, just an absolute beatdown. 24-0 is what they put up against the Colts this weekend. Honestly, I don't know how it happened. Indianapolis looked absolutely horrible. They were absolutely shut down for at least the first 3 quarters, especially the run game, which was the most surprising thing to me. Indy has one of the best lines in the league, one of the best running backs in the league, in Jonathan Taylor, but they did not look that good when they played against the Jaguars last week. As for the Chargers, they are also 1-1, but no shame in their loss. They lost on Thursday Night Football to the Kansas City Chiefs here. We do have to give the Chargers a little bit of a boost to their power rating because they are coming on in here with extra rest, having played on Thursday night. And either way, I thought that the Chargers on a neutral field should be favored by about 7 points, which is the number we have here. Add in home field advantage, that's probably more like 9. Add in the extra rest, it's probably more like 10, where that number should be. So I have no problem taking Chargers -7 here. I think Chargers -7 is a good number, and I absolutely love teasing the Chargers, the home team, from 7 all the way down to 1. You get through that 3, you get through the semi-key number of 6, you get off of the 7 there as well, so that would be a win for you. I love the Chargers as part of a teaser. I like the Chargers even at -7. Like I said, my number is -10. The 1 o'clock games, we didn't have a lot of value. So far in the 4 o'clock games, though, we have a couple numbers that I think are a little bit off here. I would definitely make sure I get some money down on the Chargers at -7. Let's go on to the next one here, Quan. So the next one is the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Let's see. I have Atlanta as a -5.5, -6 on my power ratings. I have Seattle even worse than that at like -7-ish on my power ratings. So I get that on a neutral field, the Falcons would be about 1, maybe even 1.5 points better. Factor in home field advantage. I do think the Seahawks deserve to be favored, probably by about a point to maybe a half a point to a point here. So this is a little bit above where I think it should be. Again, whenever I think that a team or a number is below 3 and I think the wrong team's favored, I don't really think the wrong team's favored here. I do think Seattle, like I said, on a neutral field, I think the Falcons are better with the home field advantage. It's basically like a pick 'em or maybe Seattle slightly favored. So for me, there really isn't any value here. If I was going to do anything, I would tease the Falcons up to 7.5, but I prefer to tease teams that are at home if I'm going to be teasing up through the key numbers. But you can get the Falcons up through the 3 and the 7, depending on if you're using the 1.5 or the 2. It still gets them up through the 7. I'd much rather do it on DraftKings, tease them up to 8. And on DraftKings, you get the -120 payout on the teasers, especially the Wong legs, which this would be. So, that's probably the way I'd look at it. Let's go on to the next game here, Quan. The Los Angeles Rams taking on the Arizona Cardinals. This should be a good game as well. Let's see. On a neutral field, I have the Rams about 4.5 points better, which is the spread that we have here. When you factor in the fact that the Cardinals are at home, probably drops that down to more like 2.5 for me. So I do think the value in this game is actually on the Cardinals side. I think Cardinals plus 4.5 is the better way to play this game. Like I said, I think it should be Rams minus 2.5 here. This is a big two, though. Whenever we talk about it going on one side of the field goal versus the other side, my number should be below a field goal. This number is 1.5 points above the field goal. I think this is a value that we should take. So I do like the Cardinals plus 4.5. I think that's the way to go. They had a furious comeback against Las Vegas last week, and this is a team that I have a little bit of faith in. So let's go on and talk about the next one here, Quan. Green Bay Packers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Packers are currently kicking the Chicago Bears' butts on Sunday Night Football. 24-7 is the way it went into the half. They just started the third quarter here as I'm talking about this. Green Bay was 0-1 after that loss to Minnesota last week, so them getting a win here would be nice for them. Tampa Bay 2-0, coming off a win 20-10 over New Orleans. When I break this down here, I get Tampa Bay should be favored by about 5 points. I have them 3 points better on a neutral field. So with the home field advantage, I think it should be -5. So the way I'm looking at this here, this is probably at least a little bit of value over on the DraftKings side is a little bit better there because that's -110 versus the -114 on FanDuel. So that would be the way that I would be looking at this here already. So let's go on to the next game that we got here. The San Francisco 49ers are going to be taking on the Denver Broncos in this one. Jimmy G coming in to lead San Francisco to their first victory of the season. The Denver Broncos also 1-1 on the season. They got their first victory over a Houston Texans team, 16-9, where honestly they did not look very good. They also had an injury situation happen. Jerry Jeudy was out for them. He left the game early. And they also had a second injury situation with starting cornerback Patrick Surtain Jr., who wound up leaving the game as well. So those are two guys that I think would adjust the spread maybe a little bit here. And it would adjust it, though, into the 49ers' favor. This is the problem that I have with this game. San Francisco on a neutral field, I have as a team that's about 2.5 points better than the Denver Broncos, even with Jimmy G at quarterback. I think the difference between my number and the number that the books are showing, and even the books between DraftKings and FanDuel have a different number on this game. I think the reason why everybody's going to have a different number on this game in their power ratings is because of the adjustment that you make from them going from Trey Lance to Jimmy G. Me personally, I did not make any negative adjustment. As a matter of fact, I made a positive adjustment to the San Francisco 49ers with Jimmy G as quarterback instead of Trey Lance. And I'm not trying to argue that Jimmy G is a better quarterback than Trey Lance. I don't want to be in the middle of this whole argument if everybody's having it. All I'm saying is right now, Jimmy G gives this team a better chance to win. He really does. And anybody who wants to make an argument against that, nothing that we've seen from Trey Lance tells us that Trey Lance is the better of the two quarterbacks at this moment. That doesn't mean he won't be eventually. That doesn't mean when he figures everything out. But Jimmy G is a better quarterback for this team right now. So I think San Francisco should be favored in this game. So when I think the wrong team is favored, what I like to do, if we're not getting a full 3 points, which we're not, we're either getting 2.5 on DraftKings or 1.5 on FanDuel, I like to look for the money line. And right now, the DraftKings money line plus 120 on the team that I think should be favored would be the way that I would play this game. I like the San Francisco money line here. Like I said, if you can get it at a +3 at some point during the week, then I would take the +3. If not, I'd rather just bet the money line than take any number under a field goal. So I like San Francisco plus 120 over on DraftKings. That's the way that I'm going to be playing this one. And this is actually the last game that we got here. This is the Monday Night Football game. The Dallas Cowboys taking on the New York Giants. Cowboys are 1-1 coming off a surprising win over Cincinnati without Dak Prescott, 20-17. The Giants are 2-0 coming over a win over a lowly Carolina team, 19-16. Let me see. When I break this game down, I do think at the moment, even without Dak Prescott, that the Cowboys are about as good or slightly better than the New York Giants. The Giants do have home field advantage here. I would have the Giants should be favored by about a point. So to get this at +3, the value is on the Cowboys. And you can even get that +3 juiced down a little bit to even money over on DraftKings, which I think is the way to play it at the moment. Listen, Dallas's defense is still very good. They do still have some really good skill players. I'm not a huge Cooper Rush guy, but then again, I don't think anybody's a huge Cooper Rush guy. But hey, Cooper Rush is 1-0 as the Dallas Cowboys quarterback so far in 2022. And I don't think many people would argue with you if you said the Cincinnati Bengals, who they just beat, are better than the New York Giants, who they're about to play here. So Like I said, I think the value is on the Cowboys side. Cowboys +3, +100 over on DraftKings. That's the way I would play it. And that, folks, is going to wrap it up for our look at the opening lines here from Week 3 of the NFL season with our NFL Week 3 sports betting picks video here at FTN Bets. Good luck this week, everybody.